Hey friends, welcome back. Today's Firearms Friday will feature the Walther P-38 pistol, or the Pistol 38. This pistol was originally brought about by a need for a less complicated and cheaper sidearm. It was made to replace the P-08 Luger, which was notoriously over-engineered, and it was very costly to make. And with Germany pretty much going all in for the war, they needed to have something cheaper and easier to mass produce. So they came about with this. This design was patented by Walther in 1938, and that's where it gets the 38 designation. They started producing these in 1939, and by mid-1940 they were producing mass quantities, mass production. So these are chambered in 9x19 Parabellum or 9mm Luger, and they were magazine fed with an 8-round magazine, and you could have one in the chamber. They are a breech lock design that features what was new at the time, a double action, single action operation, and they became the standard Wehrmacht service pistol. So after they started mass producing them, they needed more facilities to produce them. So there was Walther, of course, which was the original, and then Mauserwerk started to produce them along with Spreewerk, and they were being sneaky. They didn't want people to know where they were being made, so they didn't put the manufacturer's name, but they put a code on there. So when they were manufactured, they stamped that code on the pistol, and the codes were Walther was an AC, and Mauser used a BYF code, and Spreewerk used a CYQ. So that was their little secret. So these had a fixed sight. The front blade could be drifted for windage along with the rear notch sight, and they were sighted for 55 yards, and they were in German tradition. A lot of the officers carried a sidearm as more prestige, like during World War I and such. So they were definitely used in combat, but they were kind of a symbol for an officer, or maybe non-commissioned officers as well. And they really looked smart. So they were operated. You would insert your magazine and chamber around. So as it is, it's ready to fire. But you could also, they had this lever right here, which is basically a safety. So once this is engaged, it's marked with an S up here and an F, safety and fire. Once it's in that position, there's nothing, but you can move the trigger, it just won't fire. But once you put it in the firing position, then you have your double action firing, or you could chamber around and then fire for single action. It's an all steel construction, and the grips are Bakelite, or there are several different variations in manufacturing, but it's a phenolic resin, and they, especially later, mixed a lot of sawdust in with the resin, and that was to give it strength and use less resin. It has your magazine release down at the bottom, so you push that back and your magazine comes out. It has a takedown lever right here, and on your slide, your firing pin is contained in the machined area, and your extractor is part of that right here. And your locking block is held in with the spring on the recess, the barrel assembly, and it fits in these machined grooves in the slide. And as you fire, it goes back, and they used the locking block design to give it more strength, as they had a little stronger cartridge in the 9x19. So that worked great, and they pretty much used these. They manufactured them all the way until 1945. So after Germany's surrender, the French zone just happened to have a factory, and they had a lot of unfinished pistols laying around, a lot of parts for pistols. So they got some of the employees, and under their supervision, the French produced a bunch of the P-38s from 1945 to 1946, and they had them for their forces. So those are pretty rare. So yeah, they had the nice leather holster, and they had storage for a spare magazine. And I'll demonstrate for you. To take down the pistol, in this example, you would pull the slide back and push the lever forward, which will release your slide. You can see the recoil springs. They fit into recesses. And then to reassemble it, push all that back, and now you're back together. So anyway, they went till 1945, and then the military was dissolved, the Wehrmacht was dissolved, and they weren't really allowed to do much. So in 1957, the Bundeswehr was adopted, and they decided that they needed to have a domestically produced firearm, and they chose to start producing the P-38 again, as they had all the equipment still. So they started producing the P-38 again until late 1963, and then it became the P-1, which this is an example of the P-1. Has a different grip, and the P-1, well, this is sort of a P-1. It is a World War II steel frame, but everything else is P-1. The P-1 actually used a aluminum frame, and they'll have an insert that they added after a while because they found that with the aluminum they needed strength in there. But it's basically, it's the same pistol, but they have a beefier design on the slides and the barrels. They worked out a lot of the wartime problems because they weren't in a rush and they could take their time and really work it out. And these, were produced all the way into the late 70s, and they were used up until the 80s and beyond. And they had some variation, like a P4 model, which was for export, I believe. But basically, it's the same handgun, same pistol, just designed in different eras, and they redesigned the magazine holder and the closing strap and the holster, but it's still leather. And a lot of the examples that you find, there's a few different ways you'll find them. Some of them are beautiful, all matching numbers as made. Like those were usually brought back via veterans bringing them back in their duffel bags. They were allowed to. And the other version, which is the most common, are Russian captured examples. Usually with a Russian capture, you'll have a lot of times they used a kind of an ugly finish. Just they dipped them all in. They didn't care, because by the time they decided to refurbish them, they sat for a while in field. They cleaned them up, made them serviceable, and they didn't really care about matching parts. They just needed functional pistols, and they would mark them with a Russian capture, which was usually an X to signify, and then they put them into storage. So they sat there for a long time, and they gave them to a lot of their friends. A lot of them ended up in Vietnam later, because they supplied the North Vietnamese with a lot of captured firearms. So the other ones that they didn't give away to their friends, they ended up sitting until either the 1980s or 90s. Then they started selling them to the American civilian market. A lot of importers bought them all up and sold them, and they've been supplying the market ever since. Their supplies are pretty much dried up, so I don't think any more will ever come back, or could. But we've got more than enough examples sitting around. But these are very, very sturdy handguns. Very sturdy pistol to have. You can hook your lanyard up to it and run around the hills, and you can reenact. This P-1 with its upgrades and everything is a very, very accurate pistol. And like I said, I don't use these very much anymore, but I have trouble shooting. But I used to do a lot of target shooting with this, and even rabbit hunting, and it never let me down. So anyway, that's about all I have for this episode. I hope I helped you out with something maybe, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to bring you something exciting in the next episode. And if you liked it, maybe consider giving a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And I thank you for coming in. Be kind, make the world a better place, and I will see you in the next one.